Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
All right. First and foremost, I want to give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashem Yeshaya, Wabrawak. I am Bishop Taz here with the elder of the church, Elder Nathaniel Allah of the House of Judah International Fellowship Church. First, we want to remind you all to like, share, comment, and subscribe or whatever platform you may be on, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook. Definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know we're going live, and we're posting the short clips of the videos that we post after the lesson's over. We also remind you all that we have our tithes and donations tab here above head. For all those who have been blessed by this ministry, please feel free to support this work. There's a lot of places that we need to go, a lot of work that we need to do. We also want to shout out our brothers and sisters in Sierra Leone, our body in Sierra Leone, our body in the Philippines as well. All of those who are following from New Zealand as well. We got a lot of brothers and sisters out there that's supporting the work. So all praise to the Most High for that. This work's definitely getting out across four corners of the earth. That's the goal. But we come before you every week to make sure that we have these lessons prepared for all of you brothers and sisters to be edified and encouraged. And we ask that you do your part in supporting this work and this ministry as well, right? Before we get into the lesson, I would like to sort of send out a bill of encouragement. This is sort of, we're coming to what we'll say the end of of Lucifer's empire, right? And we all know that he isn't exactly happy that the end is coming, right? And we went over in the last couple of weeks that the righteous would suffer in these times, right? It said that the righteous shall be cast out of their homes, right? Just speaking specifically to the fact that those who follow the Most High and seek after the Most High, it's clearly seen now, right? I know a lot of you are feeling it, the spiritual attacks, the physical attacks, the emotional attacks, but the message is to hang in there, right? That's right. Why? Because the primary word that Christ uses when we talk about this time is endure, right? Tribulations, trials are going to come. Things will come your way, but faith must prevail, right? Faith and works, right? The only way it's possible to keep working through a hard time is with faith. We all feel it, right? Even us sitting here before you, the things that we go through, we don't necessarily talk about those things, but we endure the same things that you're enduring in this time, right? Right. So it's in this time where we tie our faith together, right? And we draw strength from one another, right? We draw strength from you guys, and we hope that you draw strength from us as well, right? Now, had to start it off on a lighter note because of our topic that we're going into today. We're going into a lesson entitled Hades, Hell, the Underworld. Again, that is Hades, Hell, the Underworld. We've gone into a topic similar to this in the past, speaking specifically to the punishments of hell, right? Using the Apocalypse of Paul, right? That was a Greek document, right? That's not necessarily accredited, right? So we want to go back. We want to go back with some different sources and go through primarily the construct of hell. And using the sources that we do know are correct to confirm what we went over in the previous lesson on the punishments of hell, right? So let's dive into it. The idea of life after death has existed in the minds of man since the beginning of time. Everyone's always had an idea that after death, since death became a thing, because how many of you know that we were created to be immortal? Death entered into the world. It wasn't something that was preordained at our creation that man should die, right? Put a one in the chat if you know that, right? So we know that man was created to be immortal, but death enters into the world. And when death now enters into the world, now there's a greater understanding from man as to what happens after death, right? Every nation, every ethnicity, every language, every ethnicity Every nation, every religion has an idea of what happens after death, right? Some deny that there is a righteous habitation or a place of damnation. Instead, they believe when a person dies, they enter into an eternal sleep. In a moment, we'll explain why that idea is nonsensical. We're going to explain why that's nonsensical, right? So they believe that there is no righteous habitation, no place of damnation. It's just an eternal sleep, just pitch black for all eternity, no time. Others believe in the existence of habitations, but not in the existence of the underworld, but instead believe that hell is a condition on earth. Also stupid. So, what does the Bible say about this? This lesson in particular is not for those who don't believe in the Bible or books related to the Bible. Because we understand that the Bible is the primary place of understanding of the foundations of the heavens, knowing that the God of the Bible is the one who created the foundations of the heavens and the earth. Con? The first thing we must understand is that when gaining understanding on what happens after death, it's understanding the makeup of man himself. I'm going to say that again. The first thing we must understand when gaining understanding as to what happens after death, we have to examine the makeup of man himself. Man consists of three parts. What parts are those? The spirit, the soul, and the body, right? The spirit is the ruach that was breathed into us to give us life and bears judgment and bears witness against us at the judgment, right? Remember, a spirit had to be breathed into Adam, right? His body was created from the soil, right? The elements of the earth, right? But a spirit had to be placed in him. That spirit or that breath was called ruach. The soul is who you are, your character. That's what the Most High sends from heaven into the body designated, right? And the flesh is what both the spirit and the soul are housed in. In our lesson on dreams, vision, and nightmares, we discussed when one sleeps, their soul departs from the body and travels from place to place. How many of you remember that? All right. So when the body is sleeping, the soul is wide awake. Why? Because you exit the physical dimension that we're in now, the dimension of the flesh, and you enter into the dimension of spirit. So when one dies, they enter into what some might call an eternal sleep, meaning their soul exits the body. So now you're starting to see why that idea of an eternal sleep is stupid. Because what temporary sleep is no different than an eternal sleep. An eternal sleep is simply extended. So what happens in temporary sleep is your soul exits your body and then returns when you wake up. When you die, your soul exits your body and does not return. So that's why the idea of an eternal sleep is stupid. Where does your soul go? Because your soul is still alive. Even though the flesh is dead, the soul is still alive. It's incorruptible. It was created to be incorruptible. Let's prove that. Genesis chapter 35, verse 16.
Genesis chapter 35, verse 16. And they journeyed from Bethel. And there was but a little way to come to Ephraim. And Rachel travailed. She had hard labor.
So this is when Rachel, the wife of Jacob, was pregnant with one of our forefathers, one of the patriarchs, Benjamin. Read.
Verse 17. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. 18, verse 18. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni.
So read verse 18 again.
And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing.
As her soul was in what?
Departing.
Her soul was leaving her body. She was dying. Read.
For she died.
For she died. So when the soul leaves the body, you die. This is why sleep is the closest you come to death. It's why your physical body is so vulnerable. When you look far back, when did majority of assassinations take place? While one was asleep. Because your soul isn't present. We went over this in our lesson on dreams, visions, and nightmares. Mm-hmm. While a person was sleeping, they'll put a scorpion on them, and the scorpion would sting them, and they would die in their sleep. Mm-hmm. Because your soul's not present. It's when you're at your most vulnerable. So Rachel, as she was giving birth, her soul was leaving her body. Read.
For she died. Mm-hmm. And she called his name Benoni. Mm-hmm. But his father called him Benjamin. Mm-hmm. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephraim.
So as she was dying, her soul was departing. Now, some will say, well, maybe that was just a figure of speech. Maybe that's just Moses' way of speaking about this, Moses' way of speaking about death. Let's look at the book of 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 20.
1 Kings chapter 17, verse 20. And he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord, my God, mm-hmm. hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourn, mm-hmm. by slaying her son? Mm-hmm. And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, mm-hmm. and cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord, my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again.
Read that part again.
O Lord, my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again.
So we see here that Elijah has a dead child, a dead young man sitting in front of him. And what does he ask the Most High to do? Read that again.
I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again.
His soul left when he died. Con? So the same thing that happens when you sleep is the same thing that happens when you die. Your soul exits your body. Read.
Verse 22. And the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again.
And the soul of the child, the Most High sent the soul back to the body. And then what happened? Read.
And he revived.
And he revived. Right? And he revived. Read.
And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house, and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, See, thy son liveth.
See, thy son liveth. Right? This is how, after Abel was killed, his soul was able to do what to the Most High? It was able to call to the Most High. Right? After the soul exits the body, it goes through a 7-day journey, either entering into the bosom of Abraham for the righteous, or hell for those who have done wickedness. Keep in mind, I use the word hell here. You're going to see that there's a very big difference in the words that I use as we go. Con? Mm-hmm. Con. Let's get Luke chapter 16, verse 22.
Luke chapter 16, verse 22. Mm-hmm. And it came to pass that the beggar died, mm-hmm. and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom.
The beggar died, and he was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. Read.
The rich man also died and was buried, and in hell he lifted up his eyes.
And in hell he lifted up his eyes. So what we see here is something that we're seeing 2 opposing situations happening here, right? We went over in a lesson on the punishments of hell. What happens when they gently, when you're righteous, they lift your body, they lift your soul out of your body, and you're delivered into the bosom of Abraham before the final judgment. Whereas we see here, he's pulled down. He's jerked downward, right? He lifted up his eyes, being in torment. Read.
Verse 23. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments.
Being in torments. So torments is another name for hell. Okay? Read.
And seeth Abraham afar off.
And he seeth Abraham afar off. Read.
And Lazarus in his bosom.
And Lazarus in his bosom. So even though he's in torments, he can look and see the bosom of Abraham. Right? So there's confirmation of this story where the beggar ends up in Abraham's bosom, and the rich man in torments known as hell. The area that we will examine today is hell, or the underworld. Before we examine the details of torments, we must discuss why torments was created and who it was created for. Is everyone following me? It's a little choppy, but don't worry, it's going to come together. Let's get 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. Why was torments created?
2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned.
For if God spared not the angels that sinned, read.
But cast them down to hell.
But cast them down to hell, read.
And delivered them into chains of darkness.
Delivered them into chains of darkness, read.
To be reserved unto judgment.
To be reserved unto judgment. So Peter mentions what we know to be the angels that fell with Satan. Remember, the dragon's tail drew a third of the stars of heaven, 200, Con. Put a one in the chat if you know this. Then Lucifer, being Satan, then known as Lucifer in the beginning, who are known now as what? The fallen angels. Right? So Peter here is talking specifically about the fallen angels. The judgment known as Hades was created as a holding place for the judgment of these fallen angels. That's all it was meant to be. It was meant to be a place of punishment before the second death. However, there is another fall. Not just the fall of the angels. There's another fall. After the fall of Lucifer and his angels, that would not change the purpose, but enlarge the purpose of Hades in the pit. But to confirm what we know about the fallen angels, we must first go to Enoch. Let's go to Enoch chapter 54, verse 1.
Enoch chapter 54, verse 1. And I looked and turned to another part of the earth and saw there a deep valley with burning fire. Verse 2. And they brought the kings and the mighty and began to cast them into this deep valley.
They began to cast them into this deep valley. Read.
And there mine eyes saw how they made these instruments iron chains of immeasurable weight.
Wait. Hold up. How did Peter know about these chains? The story of the fallen angels, nor hell is written. None of these are written of in the original 66 books that we see in the King James Version Bible. So how did Peter not only know where the fallen angels were cast, but how they were bound? Because just like Christ was reading the book of Enoch, so was Peter. Enoch says, and there mine eyes saw these their instruments, iron chains of immeasurable weight. Read.
Verse 4. And I asked the angel of peace.
Who's the angel of peace, people? What did we go over in the last lesson? Who's the angel of peace? Shiloh, right? Christ. Come on now. I need y'all to walk with me here. This is I need a little bit of back and forth, all right? So who is the angel of peace? All right. So the angel of peace is Christ. So he asked Christ what? Read.
And I asked the angel of peace who went with me, saying, for whom are these chains being prepared?
Who are these chains being prepared? Read.
And he said unto me, these are being prepared for the host of Azazel, so that they may take them and cast them into the abyss of complete condemnation. And they shall cover their jaws with rough stones, as the Lord of the spirits commanded.
Now keep in mind, this is what took place when we read in the book of Jasher and Jubilees, right? In the battle with the fallen angels. What did the Most High command Raphael to do? he commanded Raphael to set stones upon Azazel. Okay? Don't worry, it's gonna come it's gonna come full circle. We're gonna bring it back around. Read.
Verse 6. And Michael and Gabriel and Raphael and Penuel shall take hold of them in that great day, and cast them on that day into the burning furnace.
So where the location where the fallen angels are now is hell, where they're being held. They're being held in hell. Right? Now, where they will be upon the day of judgment is the burning furnace, which we'll go into in a moment. A lot of people don't even know that there's a difference. A lot of people don't know that there's a difference between Hades, hell, and the underworld, or the furnace, or also known as the lake of fire. A lot of people think all three are one and the same. But what we're going to discover today is that those are three different locations. Right? Read.
That the Lord of spirits may take vengeance on them for their unrighteousness and becoming subject to Satan and leading astray those who dwell on earth.
So the original purpose of Hades was to be a holding place for the fallen angels. There was no place designated for the righteous because man wasn't meant to die. So the bosom of Abraham never existed at this point either. So Hades specifically was meant to be a holding place for the wicked, for the fallen angels until judgment. But like I said, there was another fall. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 14.
Isaiah chapter 5, verse 14. Therefore, hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure, and their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. And the mean man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled. But the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and God that is holy shall be sanctified in righteousness.
Why has hell enlarged itself? There was a designated amount of angels that fell, right? So why would hell need to become enlarged? Why would it need to open its mouth without measure? Because it was created for Satan and his angels, but has now extended to all men that serve sin instead of the Most High. How did this happen? Romans chapter 5, verse 12.
Romans chapter 5, verse 12. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered the world.
By one man has sin entered into the world. Who was it, people? Adam. There was another fall. It was the fall of Adam. Read that again.
Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin.
So now death was introduced to mankind, who was supposed to be immortal. So now there must be a place where the souls go. Right? Read.
Okay. And death by sin. And so death passed upon all men.
Death passed upon all men. Read.
For that all have sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world. But sin is not imputed when there is no law.
Sin is not imputed when there is no law. So law is required for sin to exist, and sin for law to exist. One cannot exist without the other. Read.
Verse 14. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgressions, who is the figure of him that was to come.
Who is the figure of him that was to come. Adam fell as a result of eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We went over in a previous lesson when we talked about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that it was made to be a poison, right? This poison fruit took away Adam's immortality. Thus sin entered into the world, right? What we're going to see later on as we go into the makeup and how man was created, Adam was pure. How do you make something pure tainted? By taking something that's not meant to be in it and introducing it. The Most High commanded Adam not to eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because he knew it would taint Adam's purity, therefore removing his immortality. Everyone follow me? The poison fruit. Read the poison fruit. Go ahead and read verse 13.
Verse 13. Back up a little bit. Hold on a second.
Actually, read verse 12 again.
Verse 12? Okay. Wherefore, as by one man entered into the world. I'm sorry. Let's start over again. It's lucky. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin.
And death by sin.
And so death passed upon all men, for all have sinned.
For all have sinned. So the wages of sin is what? Death. Right? Therefore, judgment was the judgment that was intended for the fallen angels was now extended to man. Hence, hell enlarged itself. Wow. Hades would now act as a holding place of torments. Hades would now act as a holding place of torments and paradise and before the final judgment, where the wicked will be cast into the lake of fire. Yes, you heard me correctly. Hades would act as a holding place for the righteous and the wicked. Put a 1 in the chat if you're following me. Now, a lot of people were probably caught off guard by the fact that I said that the righteous go to Hades as well. But what we're going to point out is that the makeup of hell in particular, Hades is where everyone goes. It's a large location. But there are different neighborhoods. Just like you can go to one neighborhood, you can go to St. Petersburg, right? And you got a part of St. Petersburg that's nice. You got the part of St. Petersburg that's not so nice. Neighborhoods, right? What we're going to find is that it's no different in Hades. We're going to go into the complete works of the Josephus, right? The antiquities of the Jews. And this particular part that we're going to be reading from is an extract out of Josephus's discourse to the Greeks concerning Hades. I'm going to say that again. An extract out of Josephus's discourse to the Greeks concerning Hades. Right? So Josephus, we know, was a biblical scholar. He was a Pharisee, he was a Sadducee, and he understood the doctrine of the Essenes, the scribes, and the priests. He was a highly educated individual and was considered to be the leading scholar concerning Israelite history. So he understood the Israelites' understanding of what happens after death, based off of the records that he held, that the Greeks, how many of you know that the Greeks held tens thousands of our books, right? So Josephus had access to these books. And by reading these books, he extrapolated the information to be able to paint a picture of Hades. This is the first chapter. Read.
Now, as to Hades, wherein the souls of the good things they seek, and rejoice in the righteous and unrighteous are detained. It
says, and the rejoice in the righteous and the unrighteous are detained. Now, when I read this, I was like, hold up, I thought Hades was just for the wicked. Josephus says, the righteous and the unrighteous are detained in Hades. Read.
It is necessary to speak of it.
It is necessary to speak of it. Read.
Hades is a place in the world not regularly finished.
So now we're seeing Josephus quote what we just read in Isaiah chapter 5. What did Josephus chapter 5, Isaiah chapter 5, verse 14 say? It said, hell has enlarged itself. It's constantly growing. So he says, It is a place in the world not regularly finished. So now we have a different can of worms that's opened. Because you have some who would believe, oh, nah, hell isn't on earth. You're right. It's not on earth. It's in it. Hence why the deeper you go, the hotter it gets. North, south, people. Read.
A subterraneous region.
What does subterraneous mean? Subterraneous means underneath terrain. So he's saying that hell is a region inside of the earth. He calls it a subterraneous region. Right? So subterraneous, by definition, means resides below the earth's surface. This is why we read in Enoch that the angel Raphael was buried Azazel under the pyramid Giza and Sphinx, which connects directly to 2 Peter, where the angels that sinned were cast down to hell in chains of darkness. You see how it's starting to create how the understanding is starting to connect here. The reason why the stones were set on top of Azazel is because Azazel was already bound in hell. Those chains of darkness where the angels were cast down to was hell. They're still here in the earth. Where Raphael bound Azazel was the subterraneous region called Hades to remain until the final judgment. Read.
A subterraneous region wherein the light of this world does not shine.
The light of this world does not shine. Read.
From which circumstance that in this region the light does not shine. It cannot be, but there must be in it perpetual darkness.
Perpetual darkness. Read.
This region is allotted as a place of custody for souls.
It's a place of custody for souls. Read.
Ill which angels are appointed as guardians to them.
So those angels that are appointed guardians to you, who are those angels? Your personal angel, the one that followed you throughout your entire life. That angel remains with you in Hades. Read.
Who distribute to them temporary punishments, agreeable to everyone's behavior and manners.
So they distribute these same angels that followed you throughout your entire life. If you're wicked, keep in mind we're discussing particularly the wicked today. We'll be going into the righteous in a different week. But these angels that followed you throughout your entire life are the ones that distribute punishments based off of your behavior. Right? So now we understand the purpose of Hades itself. It's a place that holds souls, and every soul has a guardian angel assigned to them that administers punishments befitting one's behavior. Let's go to chapter 2.
In this region, there is a certain place set apart.
There is a certain place set apart. Read.
As a lake of unquenchable fire.
So now we're seeing a different part of Hades. Remember, a lot of people believe that the lake of fire and hell are the same thing. They're not. They're two separate locations. They're two separate locations. Hades is a very big place. They're two separate places. So when people have the idea that when I die, I'm going to heaven or to hell, the truth is, you're going to the same place. It's Hades. You're just going to different neighborhoods. You're just going to be in different neighborhoods. It's like, yeah, let's move to St. Pete. One person like, yeah, I'm in the north. I feel good up here. The rest of them like, hold up, I'm in Child's Park. This is a little different. You know, it's close. You can get from one place to the other pretty quickly. But they're two very different locations. Right? Read.
Whereto we suppose no one hitherto has been cast.
No one's been cast into the lake of fire. It's empty. Read.
But it is prepared for a day foredetermined by God.
The day of judgment. Judgment day. No one will be cast into the lake of fire until judgment day. See how all the scriptures we just read are coming back to you in Josephus's discourse now? This is why we set it up the way that we set it up, so that now your brain can refer back to the precepts that we already set. Right? Mm-hmm. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to relay this information to other people. Right? Your brain is connecting these dots. So it says, but it was prepared for the day aforementioned, of a day foredetermined by God. It's judgment day. Read.
In which one righteous sentence shall deservedly be passed upon all men, mm-hmm. when the unjust and those that have been disobedient to God and have given honor to such idols as have been the vain operations of the hands of men, mm-hmm. as to God himself.
Mm-hmm. So now we're seeing the type of people that will be cast into the lake of fire. No one's received their judgment yet. You just have an idea based off of where you are, where you're being held. Because guess what? If you're in hell, right? If you're in hell, not the lake of fire, if you're in hell, you're sitting there looking at the lake of fire like, dang, I'm going to be there. Mm-hmm. That's your mind the entire time. Yeah. Whereas those who are in the bosom of Abraham, there's peace, right? Mm-hmm. You have no worries of anything. But in Hades, not only can you look over and see within arm's reach is the bosom of Abraham, mm-hmm. to where you could almost think that you could begin to touch it. Mm-hmm. But then you also have to keep in mind, you have in your mind, dang, that's what I'm destined for back there. Yep. You know what your judgment is. It just hasn't been passed yet. It's almost like when you know you did something at school and your teacher called home. You know what's going to happen when you walk through that door. That bus ride, you usually be chopping it up with everybody on the bus. On the bus, you just sitting there. Everybody be like, "You good, bro? You good?" You like, "Yeah, I'm all right." Imagine that times 1,000. That bus ride just never ends. It seems like every light is green. Every light is green. Like, dang, this dude, he ain't get the 3 people that's supposed to get on the bus didn't get on the bus that day, so you get to skip a couple stops. This is what you're enduring in Hades. Because even the torments that you're enduring that are unfathomable in hell is still nothing compared to what you'll endure in the lake of fire. So you're enduring what you believe to be the worst, not knowing that there's worse to come. Mm-hmm. Well, knowing that there's worse to come. It's just that you don't know what that worse is because you can't conceive in your mind what's worse. Now think about it. This is a region outside of time. I can't tell you how long you're going to be there because there's no time. It just keeps going and going and going and go, and there's no end in sight whatsoever. Imagine that. Imagine having to sit where you're sitting right now forever. Put a 1 in the chat if you want to do that. I bet I'm not going to see no ones. Read.
Shall be adjudged to this everlasting punishment, as having been the causes of defilement.
Being the causes of defilement. You have the fallen angels who are the causes of the defilement, and you have man who perpetuate it. They become. Remember, you can only serve God. You remember, Christ said, "Ye are of your father, the devil." Right? He said, "Ye are of your father, the devil." So you're either serving the Most High or you're serving your father, the devil. You're perpetuating what he introduced. Read.
While the just shall obtain an incorruptible and never fading kingdom.
They'll obtain an incorruptible and never fading kingdom. So those who are in the bosom of Abraham have a different mind. You mean, oh, it can get better than this? Shoot, they got 100 grapes on. They got 100,000 grapes on one vine. Right? This is you feel as though this is the perfect situation that I could be in, and you mean to tell me it's gonna get better? Keep in mind, you got everybody else in torments looking up like, man, that mango sure look juicy. That water sure look crisp and cold while you're being tormented. Because guess what? You can see it. Lazarus was able to speak and call out. The rich man was able to call out to Lazarus. He was able to speak to Abraham. If afforded the opportunity, Abraham could have reached the rich man. Lazarus could have reached the rich man. That's how close it is. So you have in your mind that righteous behavior could have brought me those last couple feet to paradise. I'm only this far away. Read.
While the just shall obtain an incorruptible and never fading kingdom, these are now indeed confined in Hades.
These are now indeed confined in Hades. Pay attention here, read.
But not in the same place wherein the unjust are confined.
But not in the same place wherein the unjust are confined. So there's neighborhoods within Hades. Everyone goes there, but they're not in the same place. We're going to skip over Josephus 3 because it goes into the details of what happens when one enters Hades and is led to the right side, which is the direction towards paradise or the bosom of Abraham, which you'll go into further in the coming weeks. We're not going into that yet. We're specifically focusing on Hades and the particular neighborhood of hell and torments and the lake of fire. So we're going to skip over 3, and then we're going to come back to that in another week. Right? Let's get Josephus 4.
Josephus 4.
Mm-hmm.
But as to the unjust, they are dragged by force to the left hand by the angels allotted for punishment,
Mm-hmm.
no longer going with goodwill, but as prisoners driven by violence.
You was good before. It was like, yeah, let me see. Yeah, I feel confident, feel strong. But then you find out where you're supposed to go. Not so peaceful. Not exactly a lamb to the slaughter. Read.
To whom are sent the angels appointed over them to reproach them and threaten them with their terrible looks,
Mm-hmm.
and to thrust them still downward.
To thrust them still downwards. When we look at when we go into the book of Enoch, it'll show you that there's hollow grooves, hollow and smooth, right? Depths that people are cast into. Read.
Now, these angels that are set over these souls drag them into the neighborhood of hell itself.
The what of hell?
The neighborhood.
The neighborhood of hell itself. So you have literally one block you're in hell, then the next block you're in paradise. It's just that close. It's like you know how you enter into the hood when you see the Jordans dangling from the power cords. You're like, yep, there it is. We're in the hood, Kato. Right? It's the same thing here, right? It says that the angels that are set over these souls drag them into the neighborhood of hell itself. Read.
Who, when they are hard by it, continually hear the noise of it,
Mm-hmm.
and do not stand clear of the hot vapor itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Some all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when they have near view of this spectacle, as of a terrible and exceeding and great prospect of fire, they are struck with a fearful expectation of future judgment.
Now keep that in mind. They are entering into torments. They've entered into the neighborhood of hell. And all they can think about now is the expectation of future judgment. All that's there is anticipation, a fearful anticipation of future judgment. Right? It says, when they are hard by it, when they've come close to it, they continually hear the noise of it. What is that? The weeping and the gnashing of teeth, right? And it says, and do not stand clear of the hot vapor itself. There's nowhere you can go to escape the heat of it. And it says, but when they have a near view of this spectacle, what is this spectacle? The lake of unquenchable fire. As a terrible and exceeding great prospect of fire, they are struck with the fearful expectation of future judgment. It's interesting how Josephus is breaking this down, right? The way he's laying it out. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a blueprint. You can see it in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. It's fascinating from a standpoint. But it's also a terrible thing to have in mind when you start constructing it in the brain. Mm-hmm. It makes you realize how truly powerful our God is. Read.
In effect, punished thereby.
Mm-hmm. That's part of the punishment. It says, because of that fearful expectation of future judgment, they are in effect punished thereby. Right? That's part of the punishment. The expectation of future judgment. Read.
And not only so, but where they see the place of the fathers and of the unjust.
So now they can also see the bosom of Abraham. Read.
Even hereby are they punished.
That's another punishment. Read.
For a chaos deep and large is fixed between them.
Chaos deep and large is it? So now we're figuring out. Now he's telling us what is separating the bosom of Abraham from hell. There's a trench deep and large known as chaos. Right? When we learned about the solar system, we learned about the asteroid belt, right? And they're saying, well, we can't get past it because it's what they describe it as is this chaos. Right? It would take an extremely long time to pass through it safely. Chaos is impossible to pass through. How impossible is it? Read.
Insomuch that a just man that hath compassion upon them cannot be admitted.
Even if a just man who's in the bosom of Abraham wanted to pass over to help, even if Lazarus wanted within his heart of hearts to help that rich man, he couldn't pass over chaos. Read.
Nor can one that is unjust, if he were bold enough to attempt it, pass over it.
He said if he were even bold enough to try to pass over chaos, they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. So think about it. Like it's chaos when you look at it, it's so close because paradise is so close to you. You may think I might just be able to reach. I might just be able to reach over. But then chaos becomes larger. The closer you get to it, the bigger it gets. So it's almost like it's close to, it's almost like, okay, it's right across this table. I think I can reach past it. But when you reach, it seems like the table gets longer and longer and longer. That arm gets knocked off. Boom, arm gone. Right? So you think, oh yeah, I might die from bleeding out. But then you take your arm back and the arm regrows. Because guess what? There's no death. There's no death. So whatever you put your body through, whatever your body's being put through is going to keep regenerating. Right? Josephus confirms all that John the Revelator wrote in Revelation chapter 21 concerning those who will take part in the lake of fire. The angel that's given charge over you or over the souls that go into torments, these are the same ones that follow you throughout life. And they bring you into a place that Josephus refers to as the neighborhood of hell. So if hell is only a neighborhood within Hades, then the bosom of Abraham is also a neighborhood within Hades. Let's get Revelation chapter 21, verse 7.
Revelation chapter 21, verse 7. Mm-hmm. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, mm-hmm. and I will be his God, and he shall be my son.
These are those who will inherit the bosom of Abraham. Read.
But the fearful.
Mm-hmm. The fearful. What did we learn about fear a couple of months back? Fear creates slaves. It creates bondage. Fear is bondage. Fear is lack of faith. So if you aren't serving the Most High in this time, what are you serving? Fear. You're a slave. A slave to what? Lucifer, which makes you what? A complicit party. Which means that that what you get on the other side is hell. So the ones who will take part in the lake of fire are the fearful, the faithless. Read.
But the fearful, mm-hmm. and unbelieving.
Mm-hmm. The unbelieving antichrist. Those who believe that Christ came not according to the flesh. Those who don't believe in Christ. Those who don't believe in the Most High. Those who don't believe in anything. Read.
And the abominable.
The abominable, people who choose to take part in sexual immorality. Things that the scriptures call an abomination. You're eating pork, pig, an abominable creature. Read.
And murderers.
Murderers. Read.
Whoremongers.
Whoremongers. Read. That's adultery. That's fornication. Read.
Sorcerers.
Sorcerers, witches, warlocks. Read.
Idolaters.
Idolaters. And people who are taking part in all of these religions, Christianity, the cross, Islam, Mecca. Right? You have stone, right? All of these religions, Judaism, the Wailing Wall, all of these, Catholicism, all of they got endless idols for you. You are all idolaters who follow these religions. So you will take part in it. Read.
And all liars.
Haters of truth. Read.
Shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Which is the second death. Let's get Josephus chapter 5. Right? And this is where we're starting to get towards the what you would say the meat of what takes place here, because now Josephus starts getting into a little bit more philosophical level of what Hades and the understanding of Hades is and how man connects to this. So follow closely here. Josephus chapter 5.
This is the discourse concerning Hades.
Mm-hmm.
Hades, mm-hmm. wherein the souls of all men are confined until proper season, mm-hmm. which God hath determined.
Which God hath determined. Read.
When he will make a resurrection of all men from the dead.
Now, many will say, Elder Nathaniel, Bishop Taz, why are you going into the resurrection? Well, because the resurrection is key in life after death. It's key in life after death. Right? The process of the resurrection of souls is the process of life to death, to Hades, to hell or paradise, to your former body, either glorified or the same to the final judgment of the kingdom or the lake of fire. Mm-hmm. I'm going to draw that out for you again. You have life, you're living right now, right? Those who are watching are living. Then you die. Then you go from death to Hades. And then in Hades, you either go to the left side or to the right side, which is paradise or to hell. Then after that allotted period, you return to your body. right? Because keep in mind, Hades is just the holding place. You return to your body, either glorified, changed, or you'll return to your body the same as it was you left it, in the same way you left it. So if you left it with one, if you were wicked and you left your body with 2 missing legs, a missing arm, you out here looking like Anakin Skywalker after the after the Mustafar incident. That's exactly how you gonna return to your body: 2 legs missing, 2 arms missing, and burnt to a crisp. Or if you got cancer, if you have any diseases, any ailments that you had, you're gonna return to your body in that same form. Whereas if you were just your body, actually, we're gonna go into that. We're gonna go into that in a moment. So you return to your former body, and then the final judgment, which is the kingdom or the lake of fire. Make sense? Because you got to be able to feel the judgment somehow, right? Mm-hmm. Read.
Not procuring a transmigration of souls from one body to another.
Josephus murders the idea of reincarnation right here. Because what all those reincarnation believers will do is they'll say, the Israelites back then knew about the secrets of reincarnation. They call it a secret to make it seem like, yeah, I'm going to let you in on the secret. Let me tell you a secret. I'm actually Moses. I was Moses in a past life. God revealed it to me. They say, yeah, they knew about the secrets back then about reincarnation. Josephus was an Israelite. Josephus was a scholar. He knew all of Israelite history. But look at what he says here about Israelite culture concerning reincarnation. Read that again. He says when he will make a resurrection.
When he will make a resurrection of all men from the dead, not procuring a transmigration of souls from one body to another.
He said, you're not going to go. Your soul isn't going to go from one body to another. No reincarnation. You get one life. That's it. So when he says resurrection here, a lot of people try to use those resurrection scriptures to say, oh, look, reincarnation. He said, nah. He said, this is not, resurrection is not the going of one soul from one body into another body. But what, read?
But raising again those very bodies, which you Greeks seem to be dissolved, but do not believe their resurrection.
Now he kills the idea of cremation. He says, but raising again the same bodies that your soul left when you died. Remember, this goes back to the beginning. See how it's all tying in, right? It goes back to the beginning. What happens when you die? Your soul leaves your body. So he's saying that in the resurrection, your soul returns to that body. But then he goes further to destroy the idea of cremation. He says, which you Greeks seem to be dissolved. What? You burn those bodies. Do not believe in their resurrection. They refuse the resurrection. You cremating your body is giving up any opportunity of the kingdom. No different than suicide. It's no different than suicide. You cremate your body, you've given up the opportunity. He said, but which you Greeks seem to be dissolved, do not believe in their resurrection. Pay close attention here because Josephus gets very deep. Read.
But learn not to disbelieve it.
Learn not to disbelieve it. Read.
For while you believe that the soul is created and yet is made immortal by God, according to the doctrine of Plato.
So now Josephus is using their own philosophy against them. He says, even Plato, who you believe in the doctrine of Plato. He says, even Plato believes that the soul is created and made immortal by God, right? So let's lay that out, make it clear. You believe, as Greeks, believe that the body was created immortal by God. Read.
Okay. Doctrine of Plato, okay. Mm-hmm. And this in time, be not incredulous, but believe that God is able, when he is raised to life, that body which is made a compound of the same element.
So how many of you know that the body consists of all minerals that come from the first 7 layers of the Earth's crust? Right? So we're made up, our bodies are made up of the elements, the compounds, the elements of the earth. Josephus brings this to light, right? So he said, be not incredulous, but believe that God is able. When he hath raised to life that body which was made of the compound of the same elements. Read.
To make it immortal.
To make it immortal. So it was known back in the time of the Greeks that Adam's body, made of the 7 layers of the earth's crust, was made originally in immortality. Follow it here. Keep following. Adam was immortal, right? Made of the things of the earth. The God made him immortal with the things of the earth. Read.
For it must never be said of God that he is able to do some things and unable to do others.
He turns their doctrine on its head. He said, you don't believe that it's possible for God to take the body that is buried and repurpose it back and purify it back into immortality. But you believe that it's possible for him to take those same elements and create an immortal body from nothing? I'm going to say that again in case you missed it. They believe that it's possible for God to take those same elements or compounds to create man immortal, but they don't believe it's possible to put that body back into the ground. It dissolves and is repurposed and raised again in immortality. Isn't that backwards? How can you believe one and not the other? This is why Josephus says, for it must never be said that God is able, that he is able to do some things and unable to do others. He's like, don't give God credit here, but then take away credit over here. Josephus is crafty. Read.
We have therefore believed that the body will be raised again, for although it be dissolved, it is not perished.
He said, we therefore believe that the body will be raised again, resurrection. Now he goes through the process of it. Follow it. Read.
For the earth receives its remains.
You put the body in the ground. Read.
And preserves them.
And preserves them. Read.
And while like seed are mixed among the more fruitful soil and flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's sown, is indeed sown, bear grain.
Mm-hmm.
But the mighty sound of God, the Creator, it will sprout up.
But at the mighty sound of God, the Creator, it will sprout out. So when you put the body in the ground, it becomes like a fertilizer, right? It mixes with the soil of the earth, it dissolves, and it becomes other things, right? So what Josephus is saying is that even though the body be dissolved, it is not perished. It becomes life. It becomes another life, right? It becomes a tree. It becomes a plant, right? So he said, even though it's dissolved, it's not perished. It's still working. You guys following here? Read.
And it be raised and clothed in glorious condition.
So at the sound of God, those bodies, that the same way that he created Adam in Genesis chapter 1, he's going to do it again. He's going to take those elements purified now and raise you up an immortal body, fully clothed, right? And in glorious condition. You'll be raised 10 times, 1,000 times greater than what you were. For the righteous, of course. Read.
Though not before it was dissolved and mixed with the earth.
The body cannot be turned into its glorious condition until it is dissolved and mixed with the earth. Why? It has to be purified. Our bodies now are tainted. Why? Because of our father Adam. Adam was immortal. He ate the fruit. He ate the poison. He tainted himself and his entire bloodline. So now, in order for us to obtain our glory, our glorious state, our glorious physical state again, that body must go back to where it came from, be purified, and then at the sound of the Most High's trumpet, they will resurrect. Read.
So that we have not rashly believed the resurrection of the body.
So Josephus now brings it back around and he says, so have we not rashly believed in the resurrection of the body? The Greeks make it seem as if our idea, that the understanding of the resurrection is foolish, like it's crazy, like it's impossible, like we're bringing this up out of thin air. When he's like, the laws of nature itself that you believe show that we do not rashly believe in the resurrection. Because the same way Adam was created, you agree. He was made immortal from the compounds of the elements of the earth and immortality, right? All we're saying is that when you put the body back into the ground, it's going to do the same thing. So how can we rashly believe in something that you believe in too? Josephus wasn't a pushover. Read.
For although it be dissolved for a time on account of the original transgression.
What was the original transgression? We read it earlier. The sin of Adam. So because of the sin of Adam, the body must be dissolved. Right? See how all the precepts that we read in the beginning are coming back. Read.
It exists still.
It exists still. Even though it's dissolved, it still exists. This is why when you're buried, you don't need to be taking out organs and stuff like that. People going in and taking out all your organs and all this kind of stuff. Nah, you need to put it back the exact same way you got it. Read.
And is cast into the earth as into a potter's furnace.
As into a potter's furnace. Has anybody ever seen a potter's furnace before? Where you have it's almost like a little, it looks like a little, what would you call it? A little pestle and mortar type situation. And when you heat it up, it turns red. And you take bars of aluminum or bars of gold and you stick them in there, and all the nastiness when it melts comes to the top, and you scrape it all off the top, and then you can pour it into a mold and you have a pure piece of gold or a pure piece of silver or aluminum. Right? This is how he describes the process. The earth is the earth is the potter's furnace. We are the precious metal. Right? And by heating it up and melting it, he can skim all the stuff that came with Adam's transgression off the top and pour it into a new mold. Read.
In order to be formed again.
In order to be formed again, just like I said, pouring it into a new mold. Read.
Not in order to rise again such as it was before, but in a state of purity.
So it's not being raised the same way that it was, with the same illness, with the same ailments, with the same injuries. No, you're being raised in purity, the same way Adam was created. Read.
And so as never to be destroyed anymore.
Immortal. Read.
And to every body shall its own soul be restored.
And to every body shall its own soul be restored. Read.
And when it hath closed itself with that body, it shall not be subject to misery, but being itself pure.
Mm-hmm.
It will continue with its pure body and rejoice with it.
Mm-hmm. It's like a new car. It's like getting a new car. Read.
And which having walked righteously now in this world, and never having had it as a snare.
Mm-hmm.
It will receive it again with great gladness.
It will receive it again with great gladness. Right? Now a lot of people view it as you'll have superpowers. That's not necessarily the case. But the further you go back in Israel's history, what happened? We get stronger, we got faster, we got more powerful, right? And it was over time, right, in our mixing with the other nations, that those physical abilities dwindled, right? And we see the same thing, we witness the same thing here. What it's doing is it's taking us back to the beginning. So those same strengths and abilities that we had back then, the same ones that we have now, just enhanced, right? So it's saying the righteous, those which walk righteously in the world, never having had it as a snare, which means you weren't a slave to your flesh. Because you weren't a slave to your flesh, you receive a body that's glorified. But what happens to the unjust? Read.
But for the unjust, they will receive their bodies not changed.
They'll receive their bodies not changed. Read.
Not free from diseases or distempers.
You'll come back with the exact same issues that you left that body with. Read.
Nor made glorious.
Nor made glorious. Read.
But with the same diseases wherein they died, and such as they were in their unbelief. The same shall they be when they shall be faithfully judged.
You'll be the same way when you're judged. Interesting, isn't it? This is a part of the process, right? This is a part of the process. As we shown, right? We're going to go into it. We're going to go into the final part to sort of figure out how to avoid hell, right? In this next part, and specifically Josephus's words on that, because even his discourse concerning that is deep in and of itself. We're going to get into that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll be right back in a moment.
Coming back. Christ coming back. When he do, we bring it fire. When he do, we bring it fire. You don't wanna get burned. You don't wanna get burned. You better side with the right. You better jump up on his side. Every day we strive hard. Every day we strive hard. To keep the laws and commandments. To keep the laws and commandments. If you don't keep them or believe in them, boy, you better listen. Homeboy, you gon' vanish. Hey! What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Tell me what you gonna do. What you gonna do? Better stop playing games, get you some of this truth. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Tell me what you gonna do. What you gonna do? Better stop playing games, get you some of this truth. First thing first, gotta praise the Most High for giving me His truth in a world full of lies. We all know sin at an all-time high. If you don't plan on repenting, damn, boy, you gon' die. Everybody doing what they wanna do. Tell me who you worship, who you praying to. You gon' hate it, but I gotta say it. It ain't the Most High, your God is Satan. Yeah. Change you don't want to. You in love with that demon that's within you. Yeah. I'ma have to befriend you, help you out, cause that is what friends do. 2/3 got a title, and you don't wanna be a part of that. Please repent and turn from your wicked ways, and that's all I gotta say, cause Christ coming back. Christ coming back. When he do it, bring it fire. When he do it, bring it fire. You don't wanna get burned. You don't wanna get burned. You better side with the right. You better jump up on his side. Every day we strive hard. Every day we strive hard. To keep the laws and commandments. To keep the laws and commandments. If you don't keep them or believe in them, boy, you better listen. Homeboy, you gon' vanish. Hey! What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? Tell me what you gonna do. What you gonna do? Better stop playing games, get you some of this truth. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? Tell me what you gonna do. What you gonna do? Better stop playing games, get you some of this truth.
What you gonna do when he come through? Thought it was a game, now the joke's on you. You headed for them flames, let them burn on you. Gon' feel a lot of shame, no one to blame but you. You had a choice, but you would not apply. When you was alive, you didn't feel the Most High. Now you going down, headed to the left side, where you gon' hear some screams and a whole lot of crying. Yeah, and that's gonna be forever. That's gonna be forever, 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 ever, forever, ever. Look, you ever put your hand on the stove while it burning? That's the feeling that your soul gonna feel for eternity. How'd you pray your chain while you got the opportunity? You only got one life, what you gonna do with it? Yeah, a lot of y'all playing with a higher. I can barely take the sun, I ain't trying to feel the fire.
Christ coming back. Christ coming back. When he do, we bring it fire. When he do, we bring it fire. You don't wanna get burned. You don't wanna get burned. You better side with the right. You better jump up on his side. Every day we strive hard. Every day we strive hard. To keep the laws and commandments. To keep the laws and commandments. If you don't keep them or believe in them, boy, you better listen. Homeboy, you gon' vanish. Hey! What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when it come for you? Tell me what you gonna do. What you gonna do? Better stop playing games, get you some of this truth. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
right, we are back. Once again, we want to remind you all: like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure that you're sharing this so that everybody can see what we're going into today. We also have our website here. Go there and register for all those. Also those who want to be baptized, send an email and get in contact with the elder through the website there, and we can set up a baptism in whatever location you may be in. We also want to send a shalom out to our the elder Johannes. Elder Johannes, he's the elder of the ministry out there in Africa, over the region out there in Africa. Shalom, we know you're watching. Good to hear from you. All right, so let's jump right back in, right? So Josephus just gave us a whole lot, right? In what is 5 chapters, and we skipped one, right? So let's get into chapter 6, because he tells you how to avoid hell or Hades. Well, not Hades, hell, the underworld, the lake of fire, right? Read.
For all men, the just as well as the unjust, shall be brought before God the Word.
Who is God the Word? Christ. Read.
For to him hath the Father committed all judgment, and he, in order to fulfill the will of his Father, shall come as judge, whom we call Christ. For Minos and Rhadamanthus are not the judges.
They're not the judges. Read.
As you Greeks suppose.
So he said these Greek gods that you say are the judges are not the judges. Read.
But he, whom God the Father hath glorified, concerning whom we have elsewhere given more particular account, for the sake of those who seek out the truth.
What is Josephus referring to? There's another discourse that he has within the Josephus concerning Yeshua. Concerning Yeshua as the Messiah. This is what he's referring to. Read.
This person, exercising the righteous judgment of the Father towards all men, hath prepared a just sentence for everyone, according to his works, at whose judgment seat, when all men and angels, and
all men and what?
And angels.
Oh, but I thought, well, ain't no angels. Angels didn't sin. Angels can't do evil. Angels are being judged too here. Sounds a lot like what Paul said, where he said, know ye not that you shall judge angels? All y'all who deny the fallen angels. Like, man, angel ain't no angel sin. What was Lucifer? What exactly was Lucifer then? Was he a turd? I don't know. Like, nobody just knew what he was. He was an angel. That's sin. So angels will be judged, yes. All men and angels, read.
And demons.
And demons. Right? We know the origin of demons. They come from the mixture of these fallen angels and women who brought forth Nephilim. So now there's new souls known as demons that had no place. So these demons, these spirits will be judged. Read.
Shall stand. They will send forth one voice and say, just is thy judgment. The rejoinder to which will bring a just sentence upon both parties, by giving justly to those that have done well in everlasting fruition, and allotting to the lovers of wicked works eternal punishment.
Eternal punishment or everlasting fruition. Those are the only 2 places you can go after the judgment. Read.
To these belong the unquenchable fire.
To the wicked belong the unquenchable fire. Read.
And that without end, a certain fiery worm.
A certain fiery worm. Check this out. Read.
Never dying. And not destroying the body. But continuing its eruption out of the body when with never ceasing grief.
Read that again. But continuing
its eruption out of the body with never ceasing grief.
Sound familiar? Anybody ever seen the Alien movies? Alien versus Predator, how it was erupting out of the body? Yeah, picture that. There's a fiery worm, a certain fiery worm that never dies and not destroying the body. So it's breaching your body over and over and over again. And all you're doing is regenerating, and it continues to happen. And this is only part of your punishment. That's not the torments that the angels inflict upon you. That's just one that comes with the territory. Read.
Neither will sleep give ease to these men.
No sleep. So you're exhausted. How many of you ever went a long period of time without sleeping and you're just like drained? Every sound bothers you, but in the lake of fire, all there is noise.
Mm-hmm.
You're hot or cold, but guess what? You're in the hottest heat that can ever exist. You're exhausted. And you got this worm that's tearing through your body over and over and over and over again. And that's not even including the torments that are being inflicted upon you by the angels. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Not to mention you're starving. You're dehydrated. So everything that happens to your body when you're starving, when you're dehydrated, and you're sleep deprived is occurring perpetually for an unspecified period. So no, there's no point because guess what? You're outside of time. So you'll never sleep again. You'll never eat again. You'll never drink again. So whatever is at your worst before you die, whether it be dehydration, whether it be famine, whether it be sleep deprivation, you're always at the edge of the tip of the cliff. You're bordering death, but can't die. Read.
Neither will sleep give ease to these men, nor will the night afford them comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Death will not free them from their punishment.
No death. Read.
Nor will the interceding prayers of their kindred profit them.
Oh, remember how the Edomites were teaching? Oh, you can pay us. You can pay the church, and you can get a better position for your people in Hades. Or if you pray, you can get a better position for your people in Hades. Nah. The interceding prayers of kindred won't change nothing. No matter how your cousin may be in the bosom of Abraham looking at you, and no matter how much he wants to help, chaos is there, separating you from them. Read.
For the just are no longer seen by them, nor are they thought worthy of remembrance.
Nor are they thought worthy of remembrance. You're going to be looking at them. You're going to be looking at your cousin like, hey, bro, help. And they ain't even looking back. Look at them up there eating them scones, all happy, drinking that good water. And they ain't even think about you. How frustrating does that have to be? It's like, dang, you looking at eating them berries and fruits, and you're not even an afterthought. The just are no longer seen by them, nor are they thought worthy of remembrance. Josephus chapter 8. How do we avoid this?
In whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely.
This is the verse of the day. I want you to write it down. I want you to remember it. Put it somewhere where you can see it every day. And whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely. It's a deep statement, isn't it? I was saying this to the elder last night. In whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely. Wow. Read.
So cries the end of all things.
So cries the end of all things. Read.
And he who hath first lived a virtuous lift, but towards the latter end falls into vice. Mm-hmm. These labors by him before entered shall be altogether vain and unprofitable, even as in a play, brought to an ill catastrophe.
He said you could live your entire life You can live your entire life righteously. But if you die or the end comes and you've fallen into a vice, everything that you've done righteous is not considered. It's not going to make anything better for you. You could have been a saint of saints, but you slip, you fall, and you die in it. None of that will even be considered. The punishment is the same for everyone. There's nothing lighter than another. It's altogether vain and unprofitable. Read.
Whosoever shall have lived wickedly and luxuriously may repent.
If you lived wickedly and luxuriously, you may repent. Read.
However,
check this out, people. Listen hard. Put a 1 in the chat if you're listening. Listen hard at this part right here, because he's giving you the blueprint. Because keep in mind, none of us are without sin. All of us have something that we have to battle against from day to day. He's giving you the blueprint of how to endure it. Listen closely. Read.
However, there will be need of much time to conquer an evil habit. And even after repentance, his whole life must be guarded with great care and diligence.
How many of you feel this way? How many of you came into the truth and there's something that you're battling, and that battle continues to ache and prod and continues to come back and bother you? Put a 1 in the chat if you can identify with that. He says, whosoever have lived wickedly and luxuriously may repent. However, there will be need of much time to conquer an evil habit. It takes time. It doesn't just go away because you got baptized. It doesn't just disappear because you got baptized. He said, and even after repentance, his whole life must be guarded with great care and diligence. Why? Because all it takes is one small slip to end up back into that old cycle that you were in. It's like an addict. One smell of it, one sight of it could set you off. But what blueprint does he paint here? Read.
After the manner of a body, which after it hath a long time afflicted with a distemper, requires a stricter diet and a method of living.
He gives you the blueprint. He says, after the manner of the body, which after it hath been a long time afflicted with a distemper. How many of us came into this truth sick with something? Right? Dealing with something health-wise. And what was the first thing that we thought? We need to change our diet. We have to change our diet. We have to change our habits. He says it's no different with sin. He said you have to change your diet, the things that you're intaking, the things that you're watching, the places that you're going, the people that you're hanging out with. Everything that is putting something into you must change your diet of life. And he says, and a method of living. If you're trying to come out of an old lifestyle of sin, you have to change your routine. Because guess what's mixed into your old routine? Sin. Wake up at 8 o'clock, eat breakfast. 9 o'clock, fornicate a little bit. 10 o'clock, I'm going to go to work. I'm at work from 10 to 6. I get off, and then I go fornicate. And then I go back home, and I eat pork. If you stay on that same cycle, but decide I'm going to remove sin, guess what's going to happen? That habit is still within that routine. If you keep going about your life in the same direction under the same routine, guess what you're going to do? You're going to fall back. He said you have to change your method of living. Reconsider your job choice, where you're working. Because guess what? That's a reminder of what you used to be into. Change the way that you eat. Change the way that you think. Change the things that you're looking at. If you got to delete apps off your phone, delete them. Because what you're taking in, that's diet. It's a diet. Right? A lot of people think that, oh yeah, I'm trying out this new diet. No, listen, a diet is a habit. It's something that you normally take in. So if you're continually taking in the same things, right? If you're getting stuck on, you got these same apps on your phone and you know those apps are the ones that got you caught up in the first place, delete it. Delete it. Get rid of it. Because as long as you think I'm just going to cut out the sin and keep doing the same thing I was doing, you're not going to succeed. You won't. You'll lose every single time. I said it yesterday. I posted something because being a chef, I think a lot of people say this and they don't understand what they're saying. They say you have to eat a healthy diet. You have to eat healthy. I said there's no such thing as eating healthy. Health is being free of sickness, illness, distempers, right? Healthy is the state of being without illness or distemper. How can you eat being without illness or distemper? This is why when people say they're going to eat healthy, the first thing that you think is all these questions. How the heck do I do that? It's because it's an unattainable goal. It's an unattainable goal. How can I eat healthy? It's not possible. Now, can you eat nutritious? Nutrition is how you obtain the goal of health. So if you start saying, I'm going to eat more nutritious foods, now you know what direction to go in. Your brain is like, okay, I know this is nutritious. I know that is nutritious. You start thinking of you're starting thinking of solutions as opposed to problems. How in the heck do you eat healthy? What is healthy? I don't know what's healthy. What's healthy for you may not be healthy for me. All these questions, how many of you have experienced that? Put a one in the chat if you experienced that. You say you're going to eat healthy, and then all that comes into your mind is, how the heck am I going to eat healthy? Because, and notice who are the ones saying eat healthy? The FDA. The same people that are getting you sick are saying eat healthy. But the second somebody says nutritious, you think of foods that are, okay, a salad, an apple, an orange. Those things are nutritious. You have solutions. It's no different here. You have to change your diet and method of living. If that job that you were in and you were in sin, leave it. Find a new one. Change your routine. I usually get up at this time. I'm going to start getting up at this time. And I'm going to wake up and I'm going to pray and I'm going to read and I'm going to do that. I'm going to eat a healthy meal and I'm going to go to work. And when I come home from work, I'm going to go such and such to make sure that I'm not getting into no mess. I'm going to delete and block these numbers out of my phone. I'm going to delete these apps to make sure that what I'm taking in is righteous. I'm going to unsubscribe from some of these channels that may be stumbling blocks for me. That's the way that you defeat sin. He said, even after repentance, his whole life must be guarded with great care and diligence. You have to put up walls, people. You got to put up walls. Not everybody can be allowed behind those walls. Listen, it even comes down to this. You may have a brother or a sister that you were involved with in sin in the past, and they may come into the truth, and you still can't surround yourself with them. Why? Because they remind you of your past sin. Even if they're changed. How many of you ever thought about that? How many of you ever thought about that? All you do is remember, this person is a changed person. They're not the same person that you were. You've changed. But because simply their presence brings up old feelings of what it used to be. And you're right back into it. It's deep, isn't it? Read.
For though it may be possible, perhaps, to break off the chain of our irregular affections at once, Yet our amendment cannot be secured without the grace of God.
Now check this out. He says, it is possible to break off the chain of our irregular affections, right? Inordinate affections at once. Some people have been delivered miraculously and never went back. He said, that's possible. He said, but your amendment cannot be secured without what?
The grace of God.
The grace of God. If the Most High kills you before you have the opportunity to come out of your sin. Read.
The prayers of good men.
The prayers of good men, brothers that are next to you, that are holding you up, holding you accountable. You need the prayers of good men. Read.
The help of the brethren.
The help of the brethren. Brothers coming and checking on you and saying, hey, man, how you doing? I know you was dealing with such and such. I just want to make sure you good, man. Right? Read.
And our sincere repentance and constant care.
He said, and now it comes down to you. Now it comes down to your sincere repentance. Do you really want to be freed from this thing? That's what you got to come down. That's what you got to come to within yourself. Are you ready to be freed from that thing you are attached to? Because if you're not ready to be freed, don't even start. If you're ready to be freed from this thing, there's a sincere repentance. But with that sincere repentance, there's still a constant care. Just because you've been redeemed from these irregular affections at once doesn't mean you can keep going to the club. Just because you've been redeemed from alcohol, because you're no longer alcoholic, don't mean that you can keep going to the bar on Fridays. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You can't keep going back and going to the same places, doing the same things you were always doing and expecting not to fall into what you were in before. Read.
It is a good thing to not sin at all.
It's a good thing not sin at all. Read.
It is also good, having sinned, to repent.
It's also good having sinned to repent. Listen, we're going to the same place. Whether you've never sinned or whether you've repented, we're both going. The goal is to do what? To make it. The goal is, nobody cares how you got there, but did you get there? Nobody gonna sit up there and say, hey, man, I'm a little bit better than you. I ain't never sinned before. What, you gonna get 3 more grapes than me? A grape is a grape. Listen, I'm good. I got here. Ain't nobody gonna be sitting there thinking, man, I was a little bit more righteous than you when you look over to your left, side and see them jokers over there burning. I really don't care. I avoided that. Yep. Nobody's gonna ask you how you got there. Get there. Josephus made it clear. He made it clear. He said, in whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely. If you ended your life righteously, nobody cares about anything that you've done before that. Because guess what? You made it. It'll be as though you lived your entire life righteous. You ain't going to be sitting up there talking about, well, I was righteous my whole life. What were you? Read.
As it is best to have health always, but it is a good thing to recover from a distemper.
He said it's great to always be healthy, but it's also great if you recover from a distemper. I mean, nobody's going to sit up there and say, I had cancer. I recovered. Kind of sucks, though. I wish I was always healthy. It's like, listen, I'm just blessed that I made it. Because the other people that I was sitting in there with that got diagnosed with the same thing might not have. Guess what? Is it good to be alive? Yes. So it's good to never have an illness or to always have your health, but it's also good to recover when you're sick. It's also good to recover when you're sick. Read.
We're going to Enoch.
Yes. Let's go. Now we're jumping over to Enoch chapter 22. Where did Josephus get all this information from? We heard all of the precepts connecting from the Bible, but check out exactly where he got this information from. Enoch chapter 22, verse 2.
And there was in it 4 hollow places.
4 hollow places. Read.
Deep and wide and very smooth.
Remember, we talked about it, those 4 hollow places earlier. Hades is divided into 4 parts. 4 hollow places. Read.
How smooth are the hollow places, and deep and dark to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And are 4 hollow places in it, deep and very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them were dark and 1 bright.
So 3 of these parts of Hades were dark, but 1 was bright. Read.
And there was a fountain of water in its midst.
There was a fountain of water in the midst of the bright 4th. Read.
And I said, how smooth are the hollow places, and deep and dark to view.
Mm-hmm.
And Raphael answered, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should. Verse 4.
Mm-hmm.
These places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, and till their appointed period,
Mm-hmm.
till the period appointed, till the great judgment upon them.
Right? So we see here that he's describing the exact same thing that Josephus described. Hades, a holding place for souls until the day of judgment. Except what Enoch is doing, what Enoch sees is he sees it's divided into 4 parts. Right? And then 1 part is the bosom of Abraham, and the other 3 parts are torments or what we know as hell. Put a 1 in the chat if you're following. Read.
Verse 5. And I saw the spirit of a dead man making suit.
What is he making suit? Making suit means he's bearing witness against someone. He said, I saw the spirit of a dead man making suit. Read.
And his voice went forth to heaven and made suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and I said unto him, this spirit which maketh suit, whose is it? Whose voice goeth forth and makes suit unto heaven?
Like, who is this guy yelling? Who's this guy? Who is this guy making suit? Who is this guy bearing witness against someone? Read. Who is it?
And he answered me, saying, this is the spirit went forth from Abel.
This is the spirit which went forth from Abel. Read.
Whom his brother slew.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Cain slew.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes suit against him until his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from amongst the seed of men.
So now this confirms what we went over in the lesson on the punishments of hell. The spirit of ones that you've hurt or affected bear witness against you in judgment. Con? Read.
Verse 8. And I asked regarding it, and regarding all the hollow places,
Mm-hmm.
why is one separate from the other?
Why are there different neighborhoods? Read.
And he answered me and said unto me, these 3 have been made, these 3
Mm-hmm.
have been made that the spirits of the dead might be separated.
Uh-huh.
And
so it says that the divisions have been made so that the spirits of the dead can be separated, meaning I keep some here, some that are deserving of one here, and others that are deserving of others here. Right? Read. Now, this is why I was talking about this. This is fascinating in a sense, with the meticulous way that this was constructed. Right? Read.
And such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous,
Mm-hmm.
In which were bright spring of water.
Right? So there's a bright spring of water in one of these divisions, which is allotted for the just. Read.
And such has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed unto them in their lifetime.
So the other 3 parts are for torments, to torment the souls of the wicked until the time of judgment. Right? Exact same thing that we read in Josephus. Read.
Verse 11. Here their spirits shall be set apart in this great pain until the great day of judgment
Mm-hmm.
and punishment and torment to those who curse forever and retribution for their spirits.
And retributions for their spirits. So everything that they got away with, a lot of people are looking at it and saying, how come the wicked in the earth always being successful? How come they always get to listen? It's gonna come back. All that they've done and all that you believe they've gotten away with, it's gonna come back. It's retribution, restitution. All the what do you call it? What's the other R word that people be using? Reparation. Read.
There he shall bind them forever. Verse 12. And such a division has been made for the spirits of those who make their suit, who make disclosures concerning their destruction.
So there's another division. There's another division in that area for spirits of those who make their suit, those who are bearing a witness against other people. They've been murdered. Right? Read.
When they were slain in the days of the sinners.
When they were slain in the days of the sinners, right? These are the righteous people who in the time of Noah were hunted and destroyed. The righteous that were hunted in the days of Noah. And the righteous that will be hunted now. People who die because of murder. Right? So you have that division of Hades as well, right? So that's two parts. You have one part, that's the bosom of Abraham. You have another part, that's for the torments of the wicked. And you have another part that's for the souls of those who have endured some form of who were murdered or slain. Read.
Verse 13. Such has been made for the spirits of men who were not righteous but sinners, who were complete in transgression.
Complete in transgression, read.
And of the transgressors, they shall be companions. But their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence.
Nor shall they be raised from thence. They will not escape this judgment. Right? It's clear that all that Josephus knew, all the knowledge that Josephus obtained concerning Hades, hell, and the underworld came directly from Enoch, coupled with Baruch and Esdras. Right? So I drew a diagram here, right? Right? So, right? One moment. Right? So this is essentially what Hades looks like, right? You have the earth on the outside, and then in the middle of the earth, you have Hades, right? And in Hades, there are four divisions. You have the bosom of Abraham, hell, you have the lake of fire, and you have the slain souls, right? Very simple. Now, in between these areas, you see these double lines here. That's called chaos. That's what keeps one out of the other. It keeps one from passing into the other, right? Abel is here, right? Lazarus is here. The rich man is here, and no one is here. Now, eventually, everyone here will end up here. Right? Everyone in hell will wind up in a lake of fire. Right? So this is essentially what this looks like. Now, one of the things that I spoke of before the lesson started that inspired some interest is volcanoes. Volcanoes are directly connected to the lake of fire. The magma that comes from volcanoes, the fire that comes from volcanoes comes directly from the lake of fire. So essentially, the volcano is a direct portal down to the lake of fire. So, flat earthers, where does it come from? Literally, the entire construction of Hades itself is against your idea of what the earth is shaped like. Because keep in mind, even the ice caps on the north and the south poles are a part of hell. They're extensions of hell. Right? Let's close it out. Josephus chapter 8. Let's go back to that first verse that he wrote.
In whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely.
Keep that scripture on hand. In whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely. Read.
So cries the end of all things.
So cries the end of all things. Consider your ways. Consider your ways. Like I said, only two things can happen when you die. You go to the left or you go to the right. You have complete control over which direction you go. Complete control, complete autonomy. Mm-hmm. Focus on Josephus chapter 8, because that's what's going to keep you out of the pit. That's the goal. Like I said, nobody cares how you get to the bosom of Abraham. They just care that you get there. In whatsoever ways I shall find you, in them shall I judge you entirely. We're going to go into a similar lesson on the construct of heaven. And that's going to be a little bit more, that's likely going to have to be two parts, because, you got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, there's a lot of those, and they speak a little bit more glowingly and in more detail concerning those as well, especially when you look at Baruch and Esdras and everything like that, as far as the accounts as what happens in life after death. But the scriptures make it clear as to how this path, how difficult this path is to walk. The scriptures say that the path is narrow, with water on one side and fire on the other, destructions on both sides, right? But Esdras gives another example of you're walking the same type path, and it's just as easy to fall into life as it is to fall into death. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? There's an instance where both sides are death, right? That's when it's talking about how tight of a rope you have to walk to make it to the kingdom. But on the same token, it's just as easy to fall into life or into death. Nobody cares how you get there. Just get there.
That's right.
All right. That is the conclusion of our lesson, Hades, Hell, the Underworld. Put in the chat. We have 18 people in there. Put in the chat, what did you learn today about Hades, Hell, and the Underworld that you didn't know before today's lesson? And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comment section as well. Do we have any questions in the room? Drop a 1 in the chat if you were edified by this lesson. All praise to the Most High. What you got? Oh, you got something? All praises, all praises. So once again, we want to remind everyone, we appreciate all of your help in the work as well. We're going to we want to the elder and I are putting together something to where we can sort of figure out where specifically in the earth our people are, the people who are following the church are, so we can pinpoint where we need to get to the quickest to establish churches. We know we have New Zealand. We know we have the church in the Philippines. We know we have brothers and sisters following from Australia. Mm-hmm. But on the website here, when you register, we're going to have something there where you can put in your location, or what country you're in, so that we can figure out get an idea of the numbers. So if you're registered there, we'll let you know when we add that, so that way we'll send something out so that people can send that information in, so we can figure out where we need to go to get this work done. Right. Once again, if you want to get baptized, go to houseofjudahfellowship.org and send an email to the elder, and we'll organize something as far as that goes as well for your area. And once again, this work cannot get done without your support. We have our Cash App right here above our head. If you If you learned anything, if you've been blessed by this lesson, if you've been blessed by this ministry, please feel free to send your tithes and donations. All of it goes back to this work. It's a difficult work, and unfortunately, if it wasn't necessary, we wouldn't ask you for it. But in order for us to be able to travel and get to the four corners of the earth, we need the finances to do so. So we ask for your support in that area. Sister Kassad said, "I learned that there's 4 sections." Yes, I actually learned something similar. I didn't know or understand that Hades and hell weren't the same thing until I read Josephus. And then when I went back and looked at all the others, went back and looked at all the other sources, it made more sense that the two were separate. And then seeing that there was 4 separate parts in Hades, that was something that was new to me as well. So that's definitely one. Like I said, I don't believe that anything that we went into today, specifically out of Josephus, I don't believe that Hades, hell, and the underworld has been broken down the way it was broken down today. I don't believe it's ever been broken down the way that it was today. So I believe that, I'm sure a lot of brothers and sisters who tuned into the lesson today learned something new. Elder Johannes, the elder of the over the region in Africa, Shalom, brother. We're glad to have you in. Do you have anything else? No. So we got some. All right. Looks like we don't have any questions or comments. Once again, for those who are watching, if you have anything that you learned today that you didn't know previously, drop it in the comment section. But once again, we give all thanks and praise to the Most High, Ahaya, Bahashim Yeshaya, Wag Rawak. For those who do not speak the Hebrew, that is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We appreciate you all tuning in on this blessed Sabbath. Be blessed. Shabbat Shalom. House of Judah, Philippines, Shalom. Shalom. Y'all be blessed. Shalom.